What if I told you one of the world's biggest banks just put out a forecast that could seriously impact your savings? I'm talking about a prediction that silver could be worth 10 times what it is right now. In this explainer, we're going to break down what's behind this incredible prediction and, more importantly, what it can mean for you. So let's get right to it. Could silver really hit $300 an ounce? Now, this isn't some wild guess from an influencer online. This is a serious forecast coming from one of the biggest names in finance. Let's take a closer look. And there's the number, $309. Just to put that into perspective, that's more than 10 times the price of silver today. And no, that's not a typo. That is a real number from a brand new report by Bank of America, and it is a truly stunning prediction. Okay, so the big question, the one I'm sure you're asking, is how on earth did they get to a number like that? I mean, it sounds almost unbelievable, right? But their whole argument is built on a pretty specific analysis. And you know what's interesting? It all kicks off with gold. Right, so in this big outlook report, Bank of America is basically saying that precious metals are going to be a core part of any smart portfolio for the next few years. That's a pretty big statement coming from them. So let's really dig in and see what their argument is built on. You know, to really get a handle on this incredible silver prediction, we first have to talk about gold. See, they think we are right on the edge of a huge bull market for gold. And that, well, that's the launch pad for everything they're saying about silver. And here it is, the number that the entire argument really hinges on. Bank of America is forecasting gold will average over $4,500 an ounce. They're basically saying there's a perfect storm brewing that's going to push gold prices to places we've never seen before. Yeah, this slide here really lays it all out. What you're looking at is a classic supply and demand story. On one hand, it's just getting tougher and more expensive to pull new gold out of the ground. And on the other hand, you've got more and more people, and even central banks, wanting to buy it. And, well, you know how that works. When there's less of something and more people want it, the price really only has one way to go, and that's up. Now, this is a really key point they make. According to the bank, most of us, well, we just don't own enough gold. They're suggesting that an ideal portfolio should have something like 20 to 30% in gold. I mean, that's way more than what most people have right now. Just think about it. If even a tiny fraction of investors decided to follow that advice, it would send the price of gold through the roof. Okay, so that's the case for gold, a pretty strong one, right? But what does all this have to do with silver? Well, the way Bank of America sees it, silver is kind of like gold on steroids. They use this fancy term, higher beta, which is really just their way of saying it's a supercharged version of gold. So what exactly does higher beta mean in plain English? Well, it really just means that silver is more volatile than gold. So when gold makes a move up, silver tends to make an even bigger move up. Think of it like an amplifier for whatever gold is doing. And this slide, this is where the rubber really meets the road. What Bank of America did was look back at the historical relationship between gold and silver prices, what's known as the gold to silver ratio. And they said, look, if that ratio just goes back to where it was in 2011, we're looking at about $135 silver. But if it goes all the way back to the levels we saw in 1980, well, that's how you get to that eye-popping number of $309 an ounce. Hey, just a quick pause here. If you're finding this breakdown helpful and you're getting some value out of it, do me a quick favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out, and it makes sure you won't miss any of our future updates on these important topics. Okay, so we've seen the numbers from Bank of America, and they are shocking. But what if there's more to this story? What if this isn't just another market forecast? Because according to one analyst we've been following, this whole report might actually be a signal of something much, much bigger happening on the world stage. And this analyst brings up a really interesting point. It seems the big guys, the institutional investors, they've known about this forecast for over a year. So that begs the question, why is Bank of America putting this out for everyday folks like us right now? What are they hoping we'll do with this information? Well, this analyst's take is that this is not just a hot tip for the market. It's a signal. He's suggesting that there might be a coordinated effort underway to get the general public, people like you and me, to start buying gold and silver, all as part of a much bigger national strategy. Now, to make his point, he draws a pretty dramatic comparison all the way back to the years just before World War I. Think about it. Back then, you had empires collapsing, countries scrambling for resources, and a huge push to bring supply chains back home. Does any of that ring a bell? The argument is that the parallels to what's happening today are just impossible to ignore.
He has a name for it. He calls it the de-globalization divorce. You see, for decades, everything was about becoming more connected globally. Now that entire process is starting to go in reverse. And as the United States pulls back its presence around the world, it creates these power vacuums, making things a lot more unstable and, frankly, more dangerous. And believe me, that has huge implications for your financial security.
So let's bring this all back home. What does all of this actually mean for you, for your savings, for your retirement? Look, whether you're more convinced by the hard numbers from Bank of America or by these bigger geopolitical warnings, the bottom line is kind of the same. We are definitely living in very uncertain times.
The analyst's advice couldn't be more direct. He says, buy gold and buy silver. Why? Because he believes we're about to see a whole wave of new financial products designed to make it super easy for everyday people to own precious metals. His message is pretty clear. Get in now before the crowd does.
You know, at the end of the day, the message here isn't really about trying to make a quick buck. It's about something much more fundamental, protecting what you've worked so hard for. In a world that seems to be getting more chaotic by the day, gold and silver are being positioned as a kind of financial life raft, a way to ride out the storm and make sure your wealth is preserved through what could be a major global reset. And that really leaves us with one final big question to think about. In this new era of de-globalization, where it feels like the old rules just don't apply anymore, are physical assets like gold and silver the only true safe haven left for your savings? It's a heavy question for sure, but thinking about it could really shape your financial future.